a collaborative research network internationally. This is an experiment that started a couple of decades ago when I was recruited to the university to head this Center of Excellence, the Diabetes Research Institute, with the mission to cure diabetes in the fastest, most efficient way possible. And the challenge was then, how do you develop a strategic plan around this mission that is true to the mission? And we started to meet with industry leaders, a lot in pharma and other industry, to see how can you develop a model if you replace customer and profit at the center of your strategic planning with patients and the development of a cure in the fastest, most efficient way possible. As a background on me personally, this is a recent picture of myself at the Washington University in St. Louis. Was actually in 1988 when we developed the system and the method for processing human islets and purifying them from the pancreas. And we don't have time to go into the technology, but Antonello Pileggi and another former student of mine, Lorenzo Piemonte in Milan, wrote this beautiful review on the 25-year history of the technology and islet transplantation. So if you're interested, you can see it open access in the journal Cellar 4, which is the official journal of the Cure Alliance. To make the story short, is an historical year today because we arrive at the completion of the phase 3 trial of what could very well be the first biologically active cell product approved by the FDA in United States. This was a massive effort that lasted over 7 years, sponsored by NIH, including several centers in North America and Europe, and basically establish what can be done with an islet cell transplant, transplanted insulin-producing cells today, which is to go from a very unstable glucose variability situation to a very stable one with near normal metabolic control. And 2 years after an islet transplant, this is what could be the profile with continuous glucose monitoring in patients with successful islet transplant. The challenge is now how to do this procedure without immunosuppression, without anti-rejection therapy, to be able to apply this to all patients with type 1 diabetes, young people, children, and also with many of type 2 diabetes that have beta cell dysfunction and insufficient insulin production. And these are several of the technology that are explored now in Miami and worldwide. But the challenge that we face is in the translation of this technology in developing a biologic cure. How can we fast track and speed up innovation and testing and clinical testing in the current context of impediments and barrier to translation that somehow are increasingly severe. So what are these obstacles and challenges on the path to cure? Are not just regulatory based, like Food and Drug Administration, which is clearly is not the enemy, is there to help the safety of patients, but the system somehow over the year became so complex that is now costing a lot of money, as you'll see in a second. And then there are many other challenges on the path to cure: legal, institutional, academic, and economic, not to say the least. So why are we reaching a level of economic unsustainability in this system? Is that healthcare now is already, this was 2010, 2.5 trillion expenditure. You see the growth of healthcare expenditure in the United States alone, representing like almost 18% of the GDP of United States, with projection to arrive to 4.4 trillion by 2018, doubling the 2007 spending. So this is like clearly a situation of concern and possible unsustainability financially. And at the same time that the healthcare expenditure are escalating this way, you also have the cost of developing cures or new molecular entities. These are data from R&D, from pharma industry, are escalating dramatically, with now was actually 65 billion last year. And you see the output of new molecule is the same as it was in 1963, with the same, with a fraction of the budget required now. So I was talking with some leader from business development of a major multinational company, says how Now, like companies like Novartis, the average is like 4 billion, other are 7.4 billion to develop a new molecular entities with times that are like, can be 7, 9, 10 years of development. So this condition clearly, like, who can afford, academic institution or small entities, more and more difficult to be able to develop a cure or even try. And many people abandon translational research and start doing pharma-sponsored research or just give up altogether. So if you see a little bit more in detail where these R&D investments are done, is not much of the 65 billion a year in research and development is not much done for prevention of curing disease condition to try to increase disease-free lifespan, but is the big bulk, almost everything is done to develop new treatment, new competitive molecule with a lifespan of 20 years of the patent to treat chronic degenerative disease condition, increasing, yes, lifespan. We're all happy that now you live longer than 20 years ago, but in the presence of chronic degenerative disease conditions. So how do we resolve these challenges? Are traditional research model obsolete? What can be changed going forward? And this is something that was very provocative that I listened at a conference in regenerative medicine in Silicon Valley a couple of months ago. Was Peter Diamandis, that is involved in Singularity University, that is a co-production from NASA, Google, Cisco, Genentech, and others. And he's also the president of the X Prize. And if you have time, I suggest you to check the entire lecture because it was quite remarkable and was challenging, like the regenerative medicine community, saying you have to learn what has been the challenge and what has been the trend in industry and in technology, like what can we, how change is central and how change is not just an opportunity but can redefine the efficiency and generate exponential growing progress. And these are just curiosity, like 30 linear paces means going from 1 to 30 meters, and 30 exponential step means going from 1 meter to 26 times around the Earth. So he reviewed how disruptive stress creates an opportunity and how from the Kodak bankruptcy with 17,000 employees, there is the birth of Instagram with 13 employees and $1 billion market cap. And the prediction is that in 10 years, 40% of the future 500 companies will no longer exist, and the average lifespan of a Standard & Poor's 500 company was 67 years in the 20s, and now is 15 years. So what are the lessons that can be learned by this trend? And you see example in every field. You see Uber versus taxi, Google versus library, Amazon bookstore, etc. And in what is relevant to us, like in technologies that are riding the Moore's law, that if you remember was what was developed as an idea by the founder of Intel Corporation, that practically established how in computer technology and potency you double the capacity every 2 years. And this can affect incredibly infinite computing, sensors and networks, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, digital medicine, nanomaterials, artificial intelligence. And now I've been just in contact with the Watson research team, that is the supercomputer IBM team, on how is entering now in science with Baylor, studying like 75 papers on protein in 1 week and learning like 1 million books processed per second, and has the advantage over us that the last time I read a million book, then you forget in a week 80% of the content. Well, this computer retains every word and built on what has been, and it's fantastic, the capacity, the analytical capacity, and what is coming in the next few years. So what are the critical insights from this keynote talk, and what is relevant to the model? The reason I like it is because it's perfectly in line with the model that we try to establish in Miami and worldwide, is that there are 4 critical insights. One is that the only constant is change, and the rate of change is increasing dramatically. The second one is that you can either disrupt your own institution, research strategy, or someone else will, and standing still is equal death as a competitive advantage. And this I just paraphrase them from corporate world to the research world. And then the competition is no longer the leading academic institution overseas, but the opportunity is to connect a growing number of exponentially empowered scientists worldwide and synergize collaborative efforts in the path to cures. So if you are dependent on innovation solely from the inside of your institute, center, or laboratory, you will lose this battle, or you will not be as efficient as you can. So in our institute, when I arrived in Miami, the model was the traditional. This was, believe it or not, 21 years ago, but the model was the silos, ivory tower, build the biggest diabetes center, beat jostling at Harvard, and grow the indirect cost to your dean, bring more donation grants, and then eventually build the second tower linked to the first one. And our model, after talking with all these people and developing a new open access strategy and collaborative, was to build instead a federation of centers linked to us digitally, so that you could connect scientists worldwide and have project teams that can work like if they're physically in the same space, looking at the same microscope, maneuvering equipment across the ocean, a little like is already done in telemedicine and robotic surgery. And this has been a tremendous experience because indeed has also cost efficiency and avoid duplication, synergizes. So for example, like if I was recruiting at a certain point the group of Karolinska Institute in Stockholm in cell biology, the move would have costed us $50 million to recruit 30 people. Instead, with $100,000, I recruited 10% effort of the leader of that group, plus connecting the two centers, and now we have 30 scientists at Karolinska in Stockholm and 30 in Miami working as a team on the same. So the net gain for humankind, or in the path to a cure, when you do the recruitment of a big team like we brought, I know, the new genomic center moving from Duke to Miami, but the net benefit to humankind is zero in the path of a cure. If you use those funding to develop projects or to fund research programs, then and synergize, it could be much better. So these are some of the centers of the DRI Federation. For some reason, there is an aggregate in Italy that is growing more than other parts of the world, but we're very happy about this network. There are over 24 centers now. And these are examples of our interaction. You practically can follow procedure through internet, what we call Tele-science platform technology that is actually a fancy word to say Skype could be, or like an iPhone connected with a USB, can connect now to the microscope with $200. You can have 5 megabyte resolution and communicate images to the rest of the world. And these are some of the success stories. Like in China is our #1 center of this federation now for clinical trial, is a top institution, level 3A hospital at the highest level, Ministry of Health and President, big support from the government. And they're now launching the construction of what will be an 18-story building for regenerative medicine that will be the house of the DRI China, should be ready next year. Why is it important? Because besides the capability and the billion patients that they can enroll in eventual clinical trials, the cost of doing research here, clinical research, an islet transplant costs in the United States $250,000 to $300,000. In Canada costs $21,000. In Italy, €30,000. In China, like $6,000. So there are also, if you have $1 million to invest in research, you have to decide, do I do 3 patients in Miami or 100 somewhere else? So there are also considerations that is a network that was born to promote collaborative interaction and research worldwide, but now is also becoming an instrument to overcome some of the impediments and the challenges that we face in translational research. And this is another example in South Korea, is a collaboration with Bascom Palmer Eye Institute and our group and the DRI South Koreans. And these are just two examples. We don't have time to introduce all the details. So I'm very thankful for all the multidisciplinary challenge and team that is involved in this kind of research interaction worldwide, to all the scientists of the DRI Federation. And I just leave you with a message of hope, and I truly hope you will join and help us bring in this kind of message and problematic forward. We just formed recently the Cure Alliance, that is an international non-profit association of scientists, physicians, and committed individuals And now Cellar 4, that is on cell repair, replacement, regeneration, and reprogramming, is the official journal, open source and free access. And we hope that together is a new model, because it's a hybrid model between scientific regular paper review, case reports, but also interaction with industry, funding organization, lay group, and patients, advocate, as well as ethic expert on several of the thematics that we discussed. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Professor Ricordi, for first of all, fantastic work you have done over the years and that you continue to do. But you are certainly a classic example of an Italian scientist who moved to the United States and has maintained tight collaborations with several centers in Italy, and that's what our mission here really is. Next speaker will be Alberto Spinazzi, who is Senior Vice President for Bracco Group. He will discuss the theme Innovation in Healthcare, an Industry Perspective.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And okay, thank you. Great presentation. The first speaker was amazing, Professor Ricordi. You are amazing. So I should probably go down and present from lower level. But see, this is so. What do we do? This is very briefly and why we really care about innovation in healthcare, because we work in healthcare, and this is in a specific area, which is medical imaging. And these are a few examples of products for just the diagnosis of coronary artery disease with various imaging modalities, from CT to MRI to PET MRI to PET to coronary angio, and devices that can be used in that arena. So now we are present worldwide, in over 100 countries, and to do that we have to have development units all around the world. And if the network has to be established by academia, certainly in industry that has had to be done way before. And the main reason is that there are major differences in the incidence of prevalence of disease, enormous differences in patient management and the use of technology and availability of technology and the medical needs. And the regulatory approval process, the previous speaker was mentioning how this is challenging here in the United States, but the biggest challenge is the fact that the Europeans do not talk to the FDA, and the Europeans and the FDA do not talk to the Japanese PMDA. The same is true with other authorities in the world, and everybody now wants specific development in their specific region or country. And that creates a major problems in the application, and I would say, waste. And what happened? I don't know. Did you do something here? Okay. So also there are very important differences. What happened? The projector. Sì. Gone. Sure.
Well, we'll wait a few minutes. Meanwhile, can I ask Professor Ricordi, why don't you come back here, and since we have a little time, why don't you sit down and just relax a little bit. Take some coffee, some water. And why don't we ask the audience whether there are any
I can also help changing the bulb, and I generally do the technical service for them.
Yes.
When would you expect the first implant in humans?
For islets, no, for islets we just finished the phase 3 trial of clinical transplantation, and the New England Journal paper has been submitted. The clinical and manufacturing report are in preparation, will be submitted to the FDA. So the next step will be, I cannot say anything about the primary endpoint because the paper is not out, but suppose that we meet all the primary endpoint, then we go forward with the BLA, and we are going forward with the BLA. So practically, with the biological license application, it's going forward, and I think we will have approval within the next year and a half or two for islet transplant. It's already approved in England, Switzerland, Canada, and Australia, but in the United States, as for many other things, we are trailing the approval process by years.
Can you briefly explain how you obtain the cells?
Yeah, practically is a procedure lasts around 5-6 hours. You start injecting a mixture of enzyme in the pancreas through the duct system, and then you load in this apparatus that then they call Ricordi method or chamber, that is practically you raise the temperature that activates progressively the enzymes while you retain the pancreas with a screen. There is a constant flow that while you disassemble the pancreas in smaller and smaller fragments within the chamber, then you save the islets that are progressively released through this process in different compartments where you inactivate by cooling and dilution the whole digested tissue. And then the final step is a purification step that you go down from 90 cc of tissue to 2 milliliters that are then infused by percutaneous catheterization of the portal vein in interventional radiology and local anesthesia. So it's relatively simple as a procedure at the time of transplant, and it will be done as outpatient procedure in the future. And there is a wonderful YouTube animation of the whole procedure if you do record the isolation method with music by Elton John.
Will it be linked to the ISNAF site?
I could, if you, we could put all the movies.
Any other questions for Professor Ricordi? Yes.
So what are the challenges of building such an international network of distribution?
So the biggest challenge has been intellectual property dealing, so that like I resolved it renouncing to all the intellectual property from my inventions on islet processing and just distributing freely the SOP protocols, training material and equipment. But now, since a lot of people thinks differently, and I have friends that are presidents of pharma industry, like Sergio Dompeni, Italy, or Germano Giuliani, who tells me, yes, do you think you're so smart and utopistic to give your intellectual property out, but then when you need 100 million to do a trial, phase 3 trial, who is going to sponsor it if you don't have anything? And you know, the Celgene deal for the Giuliani spin anti-SMAD7 in Corona was $2.6 billion. So for sure, they would not have given that money without a patent or protection. So what is very important, because we need help now, there is a proposal made to develop a platform technology that is like a software that allow and stimulate contribution internationally, so that if you don't participate creatively to the project, you are not recognized those claims. And tracking also the contribution where it came from Italy, from United States, from China. Because traditionally the idea of a collaborative interaction has been, you tell your team, right guys, now we're on video conference, don't say anything that you think, and try to learn all you can from the Japanese collaborators, and then we go back, file our invention, and instead with this system, the challenge would be now create a system and a software, a technology that rewards participation to the creative process.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.